So we have a brand new report that confirms the $530 billion giant, the UAE, has been secretly mining Bitcoin. Now, this report that we're going to be sharing with you guys today is going to surprise you guys for a lot of reasons. A lot of people have speculated that these Middle Eastern giants are sitting on hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. You can even see the subheading of this article right here says the UAE's holdings were previously speculated to be as much as 420,000 Bitcoin. And this, again, hypothetical speculation would have made them the biggest government holder of Bitcoin. But the report we're going to be diving into today makes some interesting claims. It shares some on-chain data, and I think it gives us the first accurate prediction or estimate of just how much Bitcoin the UAE publicly holds. Of course, Opti and I are probably going to dive into maybe how much Bitcoin they hold privately at the end of today's stream. But let's dive straight into this new report we've got, Opti. What did you think when you first saw this headline this morning?
Well, when I saw this, obviously my first thought was like, this is huge. We've been speculating on this happening for a while. We've seen a lot of kind of, trickling of this idea that the Middle East is getting a lot more interested in Bitcoin. It's actually kind of been like a running rumor / speculation for probably over a year now. And slowly but surely, we did get more kind of intel coming out from the Middle East of what exactly is going on. Of course, we have sovereign wealth funds that are embracing Bitcoin, or rather Bitcoin exposure. And then we do know, as this report will kind of show us, we do know that they have built out the mining infrastructure out there in the Middle East. We all know they got a lot of cheap energy, which is a match made in heaven. And like we've been saying, I mean, we speculated last week on how much potentially is being held in the Middle East. And I think it might be more than this report is claiming. But obviously, we have nothing really set in stone here. What we do know is exactly what this report is saying. They do have some Bitcoin, and they're doing it in a way that is a lot different than every other nation states. There's really, maybe 2 or 3 nations that I would say are, and this is, of course, my opinion on it, are acquiring Bitcoin ethically, to put it lightly here. And I like, it was one of those things where it confirms exactly what we've been thinking. And I think this is probably just the beginning. Now, I do want, before I ramble more, I think we should break this down, and then we can speculate on exactly what's going on, because the numbers do seem low here, at least compared to what we've heard they should have, and then also some private conversations of what we believe is happening. So, Luke, I'll pass it back to you. Let's read this report real quick so that people know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, so this is a tweet coming out from Arkham Intelligence. Again, this is the on-chain analytics firm that exposes all of the big holders of Bitcoin. They were the first ones reporting on the ground when Germany was selling the 55,000 Bitcoin they held, and they dumped at the bottom way back in 2024. These guys are tracking what all of the governments are doing with their Bitcoin wallets. They have shown time and time again to be incredibly accurate. And what I think is really interesting about this new report on the UAE is it's kind of similar to what Arkham found with the Kingdom of Bhutan. So let's not forget, Arkham Intelligence found photos and video footage of the Kingdom of Bhutan's secret Bitcoin mining hotspot, so to say, buried away in the country. And it looks as if they found a similar receipt here on the UAE. So have a look at this. They have photos, and they've geolocated the mining hotspot in the UAE. So we can see, in conjunction with Phoenix Group, this is a public UAE mining company, and the UAE government-owned IHC, Citadel has built an 80,000 square meter Bitcoin mining facility on an island in Abu Dhabi. Okay, so that's kind of insane. And we have here photos of the 80,000 square meter mining facility. It's huge, it's massive. So what we can see is that publicly, the UAE is supposed to be holding somewhere around, the headline numbers at the top here, $700 million in mined Bitcoin. So this is how much they're saying has been publicly mined. If we have a look at how much Bitcoin that is, that would be around 6,300 Bitcoin. So if we were to compare this to other countries, again, this would put them at number 5 on this list ahead of El Salvador, because of course Germany does not hold the 50,000 Bitcoin that this little graphic shows. So again, I think a lot of people were expecting the UAE to be sitting on a lot more. Opti, what are your thoughts on this 6,300 Bitcoin number?
Well, I mean, in the context of nation states, it might be a humble stack here, but in the context of everyone here, it's probably more Bitcoin than all of us have combined together. So, you know, it's hard to really be mad at what their holdings are. But as you're saying, or rather, as we've all been speculating, and I don't know if we put that number up here, but, you know, as everyone was really speculating on how much they hold, the number was what, 420,000 Bitcoin. So it seemed for a while there, at least as the rumors were flying and the speculation was going on, it seemed that the UAE could have potentially doubled what the US, you know, quote unquote holds here. Now, I do have a few different views on this. The first one is, of course, we don't have any hard data besides what Arkham has kind of showed. And even going further, you know, this isn't them claiming they own 6,300 Bitcoin. This is Arkham doing their due diligence and kind of doing some sort of investigative journalism here with satellites and, you know, on-chain data connecting that they, as of now, claim, or rather we claim as the community, or rather Arkham Intelligence, that they hold 6,300 Bitcoin. Now, it is a pretty good start, I would say. You know, very quickly jumped up that leaderboard here in the nation state race. And it really just shows, like, if someone comes in to Bitcoin, stacks quietly, and, you know, does it with conviction, they can climb this leaderboard, you know, very quickly. And so, you know, 6,300 Bitcoin, obviously in comparison to like 200K Bitcoin, looks like a small holding here. It doesn't, you could argue it's not that significant per se, but it's still in the leaderboard, just like a huge jump from 0 to 6,300 Bitcoin, or 0 to 700 million Bitcoin. Now the real speculation is, do they hold more? And that's where the conversation gets interesting, because we've only really been able, and I'm saying we as like the Bitcoin community here, or Bitcoin intelligence, on-chain analytics, we've only really been able to pinpoint just potentially one wallet here. So 6,300 maybe looks like a small holding compared to 200K. But they probably, and I would argue, they're most likely holding more coin than that. And of course, if we've been speculating for a long time, and there's various kind of routes where the speculation came from, 420,000 coins, if they come out and they say, yeah, actually, we do hold a lot more, or we're able to connect some other wallets that aren't holding their whole bag, that would be huge. That would fundamentally change the nation state race on Bitcoin, and very clearly, and with a huge lead, jump them to #1 spot. Now, is that what's going on? Who knows? But we have been having these conversations for a long time. I think we've been covering this on the show, Luke, for like over a year now, that the Middle East has been stacking Bitcoin. Now, that's where like the last point comes in, is what I kind of teased at earlier. There's only 3 countries now for sure that we know are acquiring Bitcoin, quote unquote, ethically, without this kind of asterisk of, we are confiscating your Bitcoin. Most other Bitcoin accumulations from nation states are all confiscated Bitcoin. We have El Salvador that's been stacking, like actually stacking, you know, buying Bitcoin with their money. We have the Kingdom of Bhutan, which also did a very similar play to the UAE of mining Bitcoin and then holding it on their national balance sheet. And now we have the UAE, who is doing exactly that, you know, ethically getting their Bitcoin like everyone else, either buying or mining Bitcoin. That's the only 2 ethical ways you can get your Bitcoin, is by acquiring Bitcoin with your own capital. And I love to see that these nation states are, you know, doing this. And I hate to put my own judgment calls on this, but that's kind of what I do. Doing this the right way, you know, acquiring Bitcoin mining, and or just putting their money where their mouth is versus, you know, a pseudo 6102 and confiscating it from their citizens. And of course, it's not a 6102. Like, a lot of the Bitcoin that the U.S. has claimed was from criminal activity, and they have a right to asset seizures, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe it's a little more nefarious coming out of China. Again, I don't want to put judgment calls on China here, but I'm guessing they're all the countries have essentially acquired a stack by taking it from their citizens, whether, you know, through criminal activity or maybe some dubious claims here. But aka like the, you know, some Mount Gox Bitfinex type stuff. Yes, the exchanges were hacks, etc. But it's really interesting to see that this is heating up. No longer is it speculation that the Middle East is acquiring Bitcoin and saving it, which is the big kind of tell here. But they kind of got caught with their pants down. Whether they wanted to expose their holdings or not, it's a totally different conversation. But this is something we have been saying for a long time, that there could potentially be countries out there stacking Bitcoin. And if they don't want to tell us, then we'll never know until they're willing to tell us, or again, until they get kind of caught on chain. So interesting to see this happening now. Whether they kind of did this on purpose to kind of show that, yes, we are in the game and they're not trying to expose their whole holdings, that would be another interesting conversation. But there is one more point, but I do want to pass it to you, Luke. What's your thoughts on this? Do you also think they have more Bitcoin? Like, I would say they do. I think it's very clearly they definitely have more Bitcoin.
So there's a lot of interesting rabbit holes you just brought up. Let's touch on the first one. So again, there's been some rumors and speculations here for some time surrounding these Middle Eastern giants. Again, this is just speculation, but some people were saying Saudi Arabia and Qatar were rumored to be wanting to buy 1 million coins, which would be insane. And again, we don't know how much Bitcoin all of these governments hold, because the Kingdom of Bhutan showed us exactly how a government could buy and mine a ton of Bitcoin. So we can see by this headline, remote mountain kingdom of Bhutan is operating secret state-owned Bitcoin mining facilities. So again, we were very lucky and fortunate to find out about the Kingdom of Bhutan. And when all of the details surrounding the BlockFi and Celsius bankruptcy filings came out, and some very keen observer noticed, hang on a minute, Druck, isn't that the Kingdom of Bhutan's very own sovereign wealth fund? They're a creditor for Celsius and BlockFi. What are they doing mining? What are they doing getting loans against their Bitcoin? And then obviously the Kingdom of Bhutan came out and said, okay, you caught us. Yes, our sovereign wealth fund was using BlockFi and Celsius, but we've actually also been mining Bitcoin since 2019, since it was under 5K a coin. So again, we were very lucky to find this out, but the Kingdom of Bhutan showed us the playbook. They showed us, I think, what a nation state could do if they wanted to buy Bitcoin. And what's strange about the Kingdom of Bhutan is before that 2023, disaster happened with BlockFi and Celsius, there was not a peep or a rumor or a mention that the country, the government, or the sovereign wealth fund of the Kingdom of Bhutan was interested in Bitcoin. They never said anything about it. And it came out that, hey, they're hardcore maxis who've been mining for 6 years. So again, this is really where the speculation comes into things. I think it's incredibly unlikely that there are not multiple other nation states who are secretly doing exactly what the Kingdom of Bhutan did, and that is mine thousands of coins. So again, just speculation. I think they probably do own a ton of Bitcoin. Again, let's not forget the facts and some more recent news that came out earlier in the year, granted. The Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund bought about $500 million of BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, IBIT. And a lot of us were like, hey, we think it's pretty likely they're also mining Bitcoin and buying the real thing. And sure enough, the news that came out today from Arkham kind of confirms that, hang on a minute, these guys are not just buying shit coins in the form of ETFs. They're actually buying the real thing. And you can see Arkham Intelligence did all of the digging. They found all of the addresses associated to the UAE's official Bitcoin holdings. And by the looks of things, they've been mining Bitcoin for a couple of years here. So they've been able to find their wallet details going all the way back to early 2023 by the looks of things, based on this new Arkham intelligence report. So to answer your question, Opti, yes, I think these Middle Eastern giants are balls deep in Bitcoin. I think they've been buying. I think they've been mining. I think they're all over Bitcoin. But I'd love your thoughts on this. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's the tell here. Look, we were kind of saying in regards to the US when it came to our strategic Bitcoin reserve that it was, on the one hand, a very interesting strategy of saying, hey, we're going to accumulate 1 million Bitcoin and signaling to the rest of the world that we are jumping headfirst into the Bitcoin space or crypto space, however you want to frame it. Because this is the strategy that I, as an individual, if I was heading a nation state, would follow. You don't want to tell the rest of the world what your holdings are. Like, that's the 101 Bitcoin stuff. The last thing you want to do is tell people how much Bitcoin you hold. And if I was a nation state, or rather, if I was the head of a nation state, I would most likely follow the Bhutan or the UAE strategy. I would just deploy the infrastructure or deploy the capital, accumulate Bitcoin, get Bitcoin exposure however I possibly could at whatever route I needed to get our capital into the Bitcoin space. And then I wouldn't be telling anyone. And so as we've seen, the only 2 times that we've had countries basically be exposed for their Bitcoin holdings were exactly that, because of, things outside of their control. So that leads you to kind of the conclusion that there's probably other nation states out there, other sovereigns that are acquiring Bitcoin silently. So if we're seeing this come out, we've seen a small country, the Kingdom of Bhutan, we're seeing the UAE come out and say, yeah, we hold a lot of Bitcoin and we're going to continue to hold Bitcoin. I think it's a very easy argument to say there is multiple countries doing this right now that we don't know. And if you're not acquiring Bitcoin right now, while sovereigns, institutions, and the ETFs are gobbling up all of the Bitcoin, you're really, really behind in the race right now. And this is kind of the trend that we've been hearing a lot the last couple of weeks. Remember yesterday I was playing, or rather I showed you guys the David Bailey tweet, and I did kind of like a price analysis on this idea that right now the price does feel like it is shaking out the weak hand as these sovereigns, as these nation states, as these institutions are acquiring Bitcoin. And this leads everyone to believe, like, maybe we don't get another bear market. Maybe this is the beginning of hyper Bitcoinization when you have these basically countries or really wealthy people with, for lack of better terms, like unlimited money getting into Bitcoin. We might not be seeing the whales might be able to quote unquote manipulate the price like they used to. And if that is the case, if you have insiders telling us, yeah, there's a lot of interest in Bitcoin right now is not the time to take your foot off the gas or, buy that house or that yacht or that supercar or whatever you think you need right now. Right now is not the time, because the price is going to increase, and it's probably going to increase like levels we haven't seen for, a decade or years at that point. And it really reminds me, Luke, of the clip that we played last week of Eric Trump, where he was saying exactly this. We were speculating on the show that it was probably the UAE. Now, if these numbers are their own holdings, then that means there's another secret whale out there with 200,000 Bitcoin, because the UAE is doing exactly what Eric Trump just said. Remember what he said. Recall what he said. It's like, I've been talking in private conversations to leaders around the world that want Bitcoin, and they're going to, once the summer passes, allocate their city's energy infrastructure to mine Bitcoin. The UAE just did that. They literally, built a mining site, a facility, and they're already mining Bitcoin. They've been doing this for a while. So if the UAE is not the one with 200K coins that Eric Trump was saying he had these conversations with people about, then what other giant is out there going to come in and just jump the leaderboard here and be number one? Potentially. We don't know what's going on with the US. We probably won't know what's going on with China. And obviously Eric Trump, the president's son, is not talking with China about their Bitcoin holdings. That would be a national strategic blunder on China's part if they somehow leak that to us. Like that just doesn't make sense. So it's probably what we were speculating. It's some other Middle Eastern country out there with a significant Bitcoin holding, and we won't know until they want us to know. And so for anyone out there that thinks like, oh, no one's buying this Bitcoin thing, guys, there's more and more data showing they are buying this stuff. They want this Bitcoin thing. But once you fully embrace Bitcoin, there's no putting the cat in the bag. So for now, they have the, the anonymity. They have the benefit of the doubt here that, oh yeah, we don't like this Bitcoin thing. And then they're secretly acquiring. That's the playbook you want to do as a sovereign. You don't want to tell everyone, yeah, we're buying Bitcoin in bulk right now. Because then what does that do? That makes your competitors, aka every other country in the world, realize, hey, we got to put this Bitcoin accumulation strategy in overdrive. Like we got to do this yesterday, especially when you're playing catch up here. So very interesting. If this is the UAE's total holdings of 6,300 coins, then guys, there's a I don't know what's like there's a megalodon out there circulating, acquiring Bitcoin. Like it's not a whale. Like this is an apex predator in the darkness, in the shadows, with a huge holding, potentially more than the US, who is the leader right now. And if they are doing this again in a way that I would argue is the ethical way to get Bitcoin, again, not putting judgments on how people get it, but I'm going to put judgments on it. They come out strong. Yeah, we bought a whole bunch. We didn't confiscate it. Yes, we have our mining infrastructure or energy infrastructure being allocated to mining. That's a fundamental shift in the game theory going on right now in Bitcoin. And it does seem still to this point, retail's asleep at the wheel right now. Institutions want your Bitcoin. Sovereign wealth funds want your Bitcoin. Sovereigns and nation states want your Bitcoin. And everyone, we're sitting here like, why are we only at 110? What's going on with the ETFs? The ETFs want your Bitcoin. Like, now is the time to continue to stack. Why we are having all of this disbelief of what's going on in the market, this is the best time to be stacking, especially when you know what's on the horizon.
Could not agree more, dude. And you brought it up. Retail is absolutely sleeping. Let's have a look at just how badly retail is asleep at the wheel. Check this out. So this is Google Trends. We can see this chart goes back for 5 years. Let's take it all the way back. Because again, I've been recently accused of cherry picking charts. And we're going to get to that in a moment. But you can see very, very clearly, retail is absolutely asleep at the wheel. They are not here. And again, getting to that chart I mentioned about cherry picking, I think this chart here absolutely highlights that there are some, what do you call them, Opti? Megalodons out
there's
there.
a megalodon out there, bro.
Oh, there's somebody out there flapping their big fins and buying a whole lot of Bitcoin. Because as we can see, the Bitcoin on exchanges is down by 35% over the past 3 years. And again, caveat, because sometimes this isn't zoomed in, this chart is scaled from 2.5 million coins at the bottom to 3.4 million at the top. I don't know why anyone would ever assume that this says there's no Bitcoin on exchange today, because this chart is clearly labeled. But there is the caveat. The caveat is there, and we can see that about 500,000 Bitcoin have left the exchanges in the past 6 months. This has happened since Donald Trump got elected, and this is happening while we're seeing all of these huge announcements from sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East, sovereign wealth funds all across Europe. We've seen a lot of this nation state FOMO. You've mentioned something a couple of times in this stream, of the ethically sourced Bitcoin. And then, of course, we have what Scott Bessent just said recently in America on the national news. Did he slip up when he said he wasn't going to buy any more Bitcoin for the strategic Bitcoin reserve, but he would continue adding to America's strategic Bitcoin reserve by continuing to confiscate assets? I don't know whether that was maybe a slip up, especially considering he took to Twitter like 2 to 3 hours later and just completely backtracked. He said, all right, guys, we are going to try to find budget neutral ways to buy more Bitcoin, because that has been the narrative for 6 months. Oh, budget neutral, budget neutral. We're going to find some more ways to buy some more Bitcoin. And then he just kind of dropped the quiet parts out loud on the national news and quickly retracted that. So I don't know what's going to happen. All I'm going to say is I think that just kind of renews speculation in a 6102 style event. Where is America going to get those confiscated assets from? I don't know, but I think they will be forced to make what I think will be seen as a dramatic decision in the future. They're going to have to do some dramatic things to buy some Bitcoin, because it will be it will be a what is it, Opti? A national security risk.
Yeah.
And to watch a Middle East country, or we can already see the narrative. Let's say Russia's been quietly mining Bitcoin for 5 years. They've been openly talking about it. They come out and say, yeah, we've got 50,000 coins. And then America says, okay, we need 10x that. We need to confiscate all of the Bitcoin of Coinbase, or we need to take a strategic stake in MicroStrategy, like America just did with Intel, 10% stake. A lot of people say that's crazy, it's speculation, it's tinfoil hat conspiracy theory kind of territory. I'm not so sure. I just think it's coming. It's the reality of Bitcoin. Every nation state will need it. And I don't know how long until we see one of these big dramatic 6102 type events. But I think it's coming much quicker than most people think.
Yeah, no, I mean, when that story came out, they were calling me pessimist Fields in the chat because my tinfoil hat was on, and I'm like, guys, I don't look. This sounds exactly what he's saying. He's, as an individual, it should terrify you. If you're an American company, that should also terrify you. If you're one of these Bitcoin treasury strategy companies, I would be freaking out unless you know something that we don't. Obviously, we're just taking all this stuff on the surface and trying to dig deeper within what they're saying here. But yeah, it sounds like that would be a huge dramatic pivot here. That would be like the ultimate rug pull. I would argue. We as Bitcoiners or the crypto community, hate using that word, but that's what happened. Embraced Donald Trump, said they're going to buy Bitcoin. And then, 6-8 months later, they're like, yeah, you know what? Actually, we're just going to take all of the US's Bitcoin. And you got to remember, the most amount of Bitcoin is in the United States. And who is the biggest benefiter of the Cantillon effect, of the money printer? It is the U.S. And so I don't think it's far-fetched to say that this is a non-zero chance, that this is a possibility of it happening. Now, personally, as an American, I would hate to see this. I think it would be a complete devastation and 180 on what America was built on. But again, the history of governments has shown that this is what they do when they're backed into a corner. Now, the ultimate capitulation would obviously be turning on the money printer to buy Bitcoin. And then that would, I think, completely cement the view that the US dollar is the most stable, strongest, best thing to be holding right now. So I don't think we're there yet. But and to your point, I don't think we're there yet necessarily on 6102 order, but this is why we constantly talk about it. You need to be taking your Bitcoin into custody. This is the only way to survive something like this, so that you are mobile. Now, is that what's going on? Who knows? Obviously, we're paranoid Bitcoiners here, so this is, what we constantly bring up just to be aware of. This is a possibility. But yeah, it is interesting to see that there is a fork in the road. Some people, some countries rather, are saying, look, we're going to acquire Bitcoin like everyone else, mine it or buy it, which is, again, the ethical way to buy this or acquire this Bitcoin. And then the other ones, the more control freaks out there, they're like, we're just going to take our citizens' Bitcoin. And this is what makes me feel weird. This is what terrifies me. This is the stuff that keeps us up at night. It's like, remember all of last year, are we going to have to leave the US? Like, that would be one of those pivotal moments where, like, yeah, we got to definitely get out of here. So hopefully that's not where we're going, but you never know. You just 100% never know. And I see you have the updated chart there.
I do. So we can see here in total, Arkham Intelligence is estimating that the UAE is holding 9,300 Bitcoin, which would put them nearly just behind the Kingdom of Bhutan. But I think this kind of ties into what you were just saying, Opti. A lot of people are like, shoot, am I going to have to leave my European country? I mean, we've got the UK writing white papers on confiscating savings. We've got the EU pushing forward with a CBDC. A lot of people asking the question, should I stay in America? Should I stay in Europe? Should I stay in the UK? Should I stay in Australia? No, you shouldn't. And again, a lot of people are saying, where should I move? I think a really simple rule of thumb is move to a country that holds Bitcoin. I mean, if they hold Bitcoin publicly, that's a pretty good litmus test of how desperate they're going to have to be in the future. Because the reason we're seeing all of this desperation in France, Canada, Australia, for example, in Australia right now, we're now introducing a bedroom tax. So if you have a spare bedroom and if you have a four-bedroom home and you only have 3 people registered by the government living in that house, you have to pay a bedroom tax for that spare bedroom.
That's
and
crazy.
It's just insane. We've got France talking about citizenship-based taxation. We've got Canada trying to change their tax laws. Australia is changing their tax laws. Spain has a wealth tax. The reason why all of these heavily indebted Western nation states are making insane laws like this is purely because they have too much debt, and economically, all of the billionaires and the millionaires are leaving those countries, and it's just creating this kind of feedback loop where a government's just going to have to snatch as much wealth as possible. But of course, if you've got Bitcoin on the balance sheet, I think in the majority of cases, obvious caveats being Ukraine and North Korea and China, of course, I think having a look at an ascending country like El Salvador or maybe Dubai, the Middle East, the UAE, these could be good options to keep an eye on, because taking a stake on Bitcoin early is probably an indication that the government is thinking rationally. So again, maybe don't move to North Korea. Just my opinion.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can, actually. So
Yeah, you can't. Check out El Salvador. I think it's cool.
I mean, as I was joking with you, Luke, if things do hit the wall, I think being a second class citizen as a foreigner in the UAE might be better than anywhere else at this point. That's a joke, guys. If you don't know, well, it's really kind of half joke. Like, if you are a foreigner and you move to the UAE, you really don't have like the voting rights as like a native person there. And that's why I'm saying it's probably better to be a second-class citizen in that country when they're embracing Bitcoin than it is in a country that is attacking Bitcoin. So it is interesting, man. Like, the nation state stuff is getting crazy. I was literally on the phone this morning with one of my buddies. You guys probably know him, but I don't want to dox him this morning. But we were on the phone and we were talking about just like, man, how crazy is it? I hadn't caught up with him in a couple of weeks. And obviously the conversation was we're winning, but it was also like, man, things are speeding up. Like, things are getting a little crazy, like almost way too fast if you really think about it. And if you are not prepared, you will get blindsided. This is why we constantly say, guys, the most important thing to be doing is, of course, getting your capital into Bitcoin, but then getting it off the exchange. If you are not taking your Bitcoin off the exchanges, you are only halfway done on what you're supposed to be doing. What you need to be doing. It's not supposed to. What you need to do to protect yourself. And then further, there's a lot of debates on running nodes and stuff recently. That's like I think that's the final thing you need to do, is not only take your Bitcoin off the exchange, but you need to verify that what you're receiving is real Bitcoin. Like that. I know this is going to get me in hot water eventually, but like, that's what it means to be a true Bitcoiner currently. Now, I think at a certain point we'll get to like this tipping point where not everyone's going to be running a node, but I do think everyone will be taking Bitcoin into custody. I know not everyone wants to, but I think we'll get to that point where people are using Bitcoin peer-to-peer, and that's where dude, you're getting trolled right here, Luke. That's where we need to kind of shift the Overton window for people. Is you got to get comfortable holding Bitcoin, especially when the nation states are starting to dip their toes into Bitcoin, or rather making a huge splash in Bitcoin. There is as I was said earlier, there is a very, very huge predator, apex predator, lurking in the darkness of the waters that we're swimming in right now. But at least you have your little floaties, which is your Bitcoin in cold storage under your keys, backed up on titanium, so that you can protect yourself if shit ever hits the bag. So you have your bug out bag and everything. So crazy stuff going on right now. It does make me feel like this year is not over, guys. I know we're 8 months in the year, but I don't think this year is over. I don't think we can clock 2025 as a bad year in terms of Bitcoin. Again, it's been the most bullish year in terms of news. I think the price is going to catch up here very soon, and you do not want to be on the sidelines right now. So let me see.
More bullish news to cover here in a minute, Opti, but do you think we should probably save that for later?
Yeah, are you sticking around for a minute? I know you had to run. It's been 30 minutes already.
I've got to run in 7 minutes.
All right, do you want it? Well, I do have a video, but no, just let's do the story you have. Let's add that more bullish news, and then I'll do the rest of the show.
Yeah, so I just think I think 2025 is probably going to surprise a lot of people, because I think a lot of people are drawing stupid lines on chart. I think a lot of people are saying, okay, we have 3 data points on a line. to suggest that Bitcoin is following a power law. And a lot of people are kind of setting themselves up, I believe, to potentially wreck themselves. So I've kind of said from day one, I think more people are going to lose money by being too bearish than to be too bullish. Now, again, why does that make sense? I've had people tell me that, Luke, by being too bullish, you're being irresponsible. You're going to get people hurt. I don't know how that can be true because I've never told anybody to leverage trade Bitcoin. But what I have told people to do is just don't sell Bitcoin ever, but definitely don't sell too soon. And I think a lot of people are going to sell a lot of people are going to sell Bitcoin too soon because of this chart. Again, a lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to be 2 standard deviations above a power law at 200K Bitcoin. And I just think a lot of people are going to end up getting wrecked by selling Bitcoin too soon. And I think the 2017 bull run provides a little bit of I'm not going to say a blueprint, because to Chef Tommy's point in the chat, we are not chart boys. We're never going to draw lines on charts and tell you where the price of Bitcoin is going, because absolutely nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin is going, especially if a kid with this terrible haircut tells you he knows where the price of Bitcoin is going. We have no idea. But again, I just caution people to just prepare themselves for every situation and scenario. Most people in Bitcoin today weren't here in 2017. And all I'm going to say is I just think we haven't seen a real bull run in 8 years now. And I think a 2017 model where Bitcoin 20x'd in 9 months is a lot more likely than most people think. I think, again, we went from 1K to 20K in 9 months. If Bitcoin did the same thing in 9 months, it'd go from 100K to 2 million by what, March or April 2026. I think most people are saying that's absolutely impossible. It's never going to happen. Again, I'm not saying it's my most likely base case, but I am saying there's a good 20 to maybe 25% chance we see something like that. Really face melting Bitcoin bull run. So again, that's the kind of bullish chart I wanted to walk through there, Opti. I'd love your thoughts on this.
I'm kind of sad you're not going to be on the whole show with me, because I'm also going to give some hopium to wrap up the show. But yeah, this has been my case for a while. Look, I know it's been a slow start of 2025, and I think the disbelief we're feeling right now, kind of like the I don't want to say emotional trauma, but the low morale that we're currently seeing around Twitter. As much as I'm feeling it like everyone else, it does make me feel that this is when things start to pump. Like when you start feeling like, man, why am I holding this thing? Why are we just trading the S&P 500? That's usually when Bitcoin starts ripping. And so I've been saying for, I don't know, over a year now, like the 250, 300K, like 2 to 300K seemed like an easy run up. Again, I've been wrong on this in the past. But with all of this new news coming out, I think you do have a point, like 2026 to 27 to 28. I think those are going to be some game-changing years, even though there potentially could be some drawdowns. Like I'm kind of leaning into we're going to get bored to death to $1 million like metric right now. That meme is where I'm leaning towards, because that's what's going on. You pump, you dump, you crab, you pump, you dump, you crab. And like that's what we're dealing with right now. But I know there has been a lot of talk about no more parabolic runs. I don't see that happening. Remember the numbers here. The statistics are just the math isn't mathing, guys. The world capital that has found Bitcoin is what, 0.2%. We know institutions are coming in. Basically, 99% of their capital hasn't even found its way into Bitcoin. We're just starting to see that nation states are accumulating, and you're telling me we're not going to have a parabolic run when you go outside and you talk to people and no one holds Bitcoin. Just makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. Anyways, Luke, I know you got to run. So thanks for showing up with me. Thanks for doing this first part with me. Guys, we'll see Luke soon, and you're stuck with me the rest of the show. So you already know the deal. All right, guys, I do want to remind you guys, before I keep going, smash the like button, comment on this video. What do you guys think of this show? And of course, hit the subscriber button somewhere up there and join us on this ride. You're going to get the best content, the most content. We are winning in this Bitcoin mimetic war that we are a part of. Anyways, on that note, I do want to give a huge shout out to our boys over at Bitcoin Well, the best place to buy your Bitcoin because they send it to you directly. When you get your money to them, it goes directly into cold storage. And this is why we love them, guys. They will never rug pull your Bitcoin. They can never rug pull your Bitcoin. This is the way to get your Bitcoin. Of course, scan the QR code here. Wait, here. And when you scan your QR code, you have 3 chances to win 1,000,000 sats. Now, if you are someone sitting on the sideline, make sure you get in touch with the Bitcoin Infinite Well team. They will hold your hand, white glove service to buy $50,000 or more of Bitcoin at one time. But they won't just sell you the Bitcoin. They're going to make sure that you're securing this Bitcoin for generational wealth. All right, guys, on that note, I got some interesting stuff. We got a new clip from Larry Fink about his turn on Bitcoin and why he changed his mind. And then we got some more interesting stuff coming out of the U.S. in regards to a debacle, a debate, some firings at the Fed, some interesting stuff happening. And then I'm going to wrap up the show with some bullish stuff. I got to give myself some hopium here on the show, guys. Maybe it's some copium on the show, but we're gonna talk where we are in this cycle. Is it over or has it just begun? All right, we'll be back in 1 minute.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
Alrighty then, guys. I am back. Solo dolo. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've done a solo show. I've been actually, tell me in the chat, do you think Opti can run a solo show? You think that would be a good show? I've been thinking about that experiment for a minute. Anyways, I'm over here on Clark Moody's dashboard. And wow, look at the price. Okay, here we are. The current Bitcoin price is 109,840. Actually, I'm going to drop a poll right now. Let me do a poll on YouTube. If you're on Rumble, then you can just comment because they don't have a poll. But the poll question is, will we see Bitcoin under 100K? Let me know in the poll on YouTube or in the chat on Rumble, or if you're on Twitter, just comment. Okay, so we are dropping currently at 109,800 per Bitcoin. The block height is 911,811, 911,811, and the market cap is 2.19 trillion. We're bleeding right now. Remember when we had the $2.4 trillion market cap like a week ago? Yeah, it's been fun. Anyways, the decline from all-time high is currently negative 11.7%. It is on an 11% discount. So if you like Bitcoin at all-time high, you should love Bitcoin at an 11% discount. Absolutely fun times, super fun times. All right, guys, as I was telling you, so this hit our radar, went kind of, semi-viral on Twitter. Larry Fink did a new interview. It was actually kind of slept under the radar. This was posted a week ago on this Legends Live, a Citibank interview, I believe it was. And I saw this clip, but this clip was only 1 minute. And so I went to the full video. I browsed through the video and I finally found the portion of where they talk about this. So it is like a 2.5 minute clip, but I do think there's some interesting stuff. I did clip the beginning of it. And basically what the interviewer was saying is like, hey, you brought up stable coins. Like what was your pivot into digital assets? And then this is where the clip happens, and then we'll chat about it, and I'll point out a few different things.
Well, one of my most quotes that are repeated the most, I was on a panel in Washington with Jamie Dimon, and he was pissing all over Bitcoin, and I piled on and said, Bitcoin is the currency for money launderers and thieves. So I did say that in 2017.
Yep.
But during COVID, when I had more free time to think about, I actually went on a journey, and I talked to a lot of people who were true believers. I met this woman from Afghanistan who uses Bitcoin to pay women workers in Afghanistan, and the Taliban, forbids women to work. And the banking system is controlled by the Taliban, but she was using Bitcoin to reward women. And I was just learning all the different applications. And I came to the view that there's a lot of legitimacy with Bitcoin. Certainly the technology around, the blockchain around Bitcoin was pretty unrivaled, and it still is. And I became a believer in a, not like it's going to be a currency, but right. I believe that there's a role for it like digital gold. And since most of BlackRock's business is based on long-termism, and I always raise the question, why would anybody invest in a 20 or 30-year outcome unless you believe the 20 or 30-year outcome is going to be good? Because if you didn't believe in over a 20, 30-year horizon that that those long-term investments would be better, you would keep all your money in a bank account or in a mattress. And so, all our business is based on hope. And I said, you know what, Bitcoin is a currency of fear. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of your security in your country. You own Bitcoin because you're frightened of the debasement of your currency. What an interesting, despite that it's illegal for Chinese to own Bitcoin, 20% of all Bitcoin ownership is Chinese.
Exactly, but you want to make sure no one hacks your wallet.
Yeah, I guess so. But so it's an evolution. And I'm proud of admitting that, okay, I was wrong. And now, to me, this is the experience. You grow and learn, and you make mistakes. And
interesting. All right. So look, he does sound sincere, but I do want to ask the chat, do you think he's being sincere here? That's probably the real question here. Or is he kind of talking his bag, which I would argue he probably is. But anyways, there are some interesting points in this. The first one is, he said, as actually someone in the chat said it the best. Main point, you need free time to learn Bitcoin. Honestly, hit the nail on the head here. Like, once you're going through the rat race, you do have to have some downtime, or rather maybe some conviction or maybe some problem in your life, and you look into Bitcoin and then you understand, oh, wait, this thing can improve my life. So maybe, giving him the benefit of the doubt here, which maybe I shouldn't. He did say, I talked to some true believers here, and they fundamentally shifted my point of view here. Though it is funny of him talking about with Jamie Dimon, him piling on, calling it it's money laundering for thieves and whatever, all the bad things he said about Bitcoin. Now he's finally seen the light. Now, as much as I want to be cynical, we have seen a lot of people make that pivot, most famously, probably Michael Saylor. So I am open to the idea that this is sincere and this is actually what he believes, though kind of knowing Larry Fink and his track record, it does seem like a good public kind of bending of the knee. We all know now he is at the co-interim of the World Economic Forum, which, for us Bitcoiners really makes us feel uncomfortable. But anyways, that's just kind of the overall view of what he said. The part that I found most interesting of this was when he started talking about Bitcoin as a currency. I don't know if you guys caught that, but he said, look, I don't think Bitcoin's going to be a currency. It's more like digital gold. And then literally less than 1 minute later, he started calling it a currency of fear, a currency of, basically saying it's freedom. So he does kind of wrap his head around what Bitcoin is. Like, if you are afraid of your country stealing your assets, stealing your money, then yes, you should buy Bitcoin. if you, like everyone on planet Earth, realize that your country is going to debase your currency, debase your money, then you should probably buy Bitcoin. But it is interesting, within 30 seconds, he's like, look, Bitcoin's not a currency. But actually, you know, it's a currency of fear. It's a currency of protection here. It's a currency of freedom. So even if he is sincere here, it doesn't seem like he's being totally consistent here. Bitcoin is much more than just digital gold. As we like to say, it's the best money in the world. There's no better money than Bitcoin. Yes, you could say it's digital money. I can't hold it. How's it real money? Whatever. Like that's besides the point. Your dollars are already digital. Your fiat currencies are already digital. You just don't understand the piping, the plumbing of the traditional financial system. So I found that very interesting that within 20 seconds or something like that, he completely kind of neutered his own statements there. It's like, it's not a currency, but it's a currency of fear. It's a currency of debasement protection. It sounds like he is kind of rolling out the foundation for fully embracing Bitcoin. But also, we all know the BlackRock IBIT ETF is the best performing ETF ever. It's one of the best performing products, if not the best performing products for BlackRock. So it is interesting that once he's able to profit off of this, he's embracing it. You know, I'm seeing a little bit of the hypocrisy here, but, you know, again, he does sound sincere here. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in this regard. I know I troll Bitcoiners. Larry is one of us. I know I troll a lot of Bitcoiners of being bad at orange pilling. But maybe we finally got one. We got Elaine. He's not sincere. He's playing those who are weak. This guy lives on the ruin, sorrow, and death of our. Look, I tend to agree with you, but the point that he was saying about hope, remember, hope.com by Saylor is Bitcoin. And as an investor, again, as we always say, incentives do drive kind of a lot of people's morality. If you are one of the biggest asset holders in the world and you're looking for 20 to 30 year investments, it's hard not to look at Bitcoin and be like, yeah, this is the best investment for the long term. Whether they just think of it as an investment or like us, we think it's the best money. It's going to be the future of money. I think, you know, the incentives are aligning. He is looking towards the future and realize, yeah, this fiat system's probably not in a good place. And as I've been saying for a long time, even our worst enemies, the very people that Bitcoin was designed to disintermediate, if they understand what is going on, if they see the world as we do, then they need a money just as much as we do, if not more. They have a lot more to protect. So I could see the incentives aligning here. Again, I'm being less cynical than I usually am, but I don't know. It does, on the one hand, if you're afraid of zero, if you're afraid that fiat is going to zero, then buy Bitcoin. He's not wrong. Dude, look, he's talking our bags here. Look, I don't think Larry Fink is a Bitcoiner per se, like we are, but he's saying all the right things. It's good marketing. I don't know, guys. Let me see if Rumble. Let's see. Fiat maxis just can't come to terms with the fact that everything they've always believed about their money is wrong. I mean, it's almost like he said that he realized he was wrong. I don't know. Maybe I need to be a little more cynical for you guys, but yeah, guys, hope.com. It's a Bitcoin thing. So Bitcoin does have the ability to change a lot of people's minds. As the meme goes, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Even if you have a rotten heart, it might bring your heart back to life. I'm trolling. All right, guys, I do want to move into the news. We have an interesting saga coming out of the Federal Reserve. And before we cover this, I did see some people saying, like, I never thought I'd get to the date where I see Bitcoiners cheerleading the Fed. This is not what's going on. We are just covering the news as it affects economics and finances. And there's a very interesting shakeup going on in the Fed, which, if it goes in Donald Trump's favor, which I think it is, rate cuts coming, boys and girls, aka money printer is coming, aka easy money, which means the imminent bull run is on the horizon. So I'm here for the bull runs, guys. I'm all for the bull runs. Anyways, let's get into the news.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
Oh, sorry guys, I got distracted. Good comment by Soshi Satoshi. I want to live in the kumbaya world that Opti envisions. All right. I'm getting roasted. Okay, all right. Anyways, today's saga is involving the Fed. So if you were on Twitter last night, you probably saw this. I don't know if this hit mainstream media yet, but it is hitting the rounds on Twitter. So Zero Hedge tweeted, Trump fires Fed Governor Lisa Cook. And here is the post that is going around. Dr. Lisa D. Cook, member of the Board of Governors, United States Federal Reserve System. Dear Governor Cook, pursuant to my, and this coming from Donald Trump, pursuant to my, and there's maybe some speculation of this being like one of those auto stamps, but that's for a totally different conversation. So, pursuant to my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States and the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, as amended, you are hereby removed from your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, effective immediately. You heard that right. Trump just fired a Fed board member, a Fed governor. The Federal Reserve Act provides that you may be removed at my discretion for cause. That's the big asterisk here, for cause. And I have determined that there is sufficient cause to remove you from your position. And here is kind of the case as set forth in the criminal referral dated August 15th, 2025 from Mr. William J. Poole, Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, to Ms. Pam Bondi, Attorney General of the U.S. There is sufficient reason to believe you have made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements. For example, as detailed in the criminal referral, you signed one document attesting that a property in Michigan would be your primary residence for the next year. 2 weeks later, you signed another document for a property in Georgia stating that it would be your primary residence for the next year. It is inconceivable that you were not aware of your first commitment when making the second. It is impossible that you intended to honor both. The Fed Reserve has tremendous responsibility for setting interest rates and regulating reserve and member banks. The American people must be able to have full confidence in the honesty of the members entrusted with settling policy and overseeing the Federal Reserve. So a few interesting things here. One, the for cause. It looks like she did, some form of mortgage fraud, and it is going to case here. Now, I think the more interesting aspect of this is that last sentence I read. The Federal Reserve has tremendous responsibility for setting interest rates, which is, of course, one of the biggest things that Trump has been nagging Jay Powell about. He's been talking about this for a while. We all know publicly they keep saying we want a strong dollar, we want US dollar dominance, but in their actions, they are doing a few things. Of course, they want to weaken the dollar and lowest interest rates so that free money, or rather easy money, can flow so that people will invest. And of course, while more people take out loans, they can expand the money supply and try to inflate their way out of this. Now, before I go into this saga a little more, this part is very interesting to me. The American people must be able to have full confidence in the honesty of the members and trusting with setting policy and overseeing the Federal Reserve. If you've been a Simply Bitcoin viewer, if you've been one of the fam that hangs out with us every single day, you know I've been saying on this show for a long time, what is going on is a lot of, the erosion of trust in these institutions. And this, you could argue, is just kind of a narrative trench warfare scenario where they realize they're losing trust in these institutions, not just in the Federal Reserve, but all institutions at large. And they have to try to reshore the trust in these institutions. And remember, fiat money, by definition, is money by decree, which means you have to trust that the government is going to control the money in a way that benefits you. If they are losing that trust, if people stop trusting the Federal Reserve and people opt out of their money, that's when the scam is exposed. Hence, I find it interesting that they specifically said the American people must have trust in you guys, and this is us trying to reshore that trust. Maybe it's a small little tidbit here, but I think that's a huge tell of what's going on. Now, going further, we have Joe Consorti. And just like that, the president has fired a voting Fed member for the first time in history. The White House has never been this adamant about exerting influence over the U.S. central bank. Fiscal dominance accelerates. Weimar beckons. So, getting into a little more of the details here, we have Mario Nawfal. Right here is where it gets more interesting. The 1913 Federal Reserve Act permits removal only for cause, which it seems he has, historically meaning serious misconduct and not policy disputes. Yet Trump has raged against the Fed's refusal to slash interest rates. If this is successful, Trump gains a 4-3 board majority, fundamentally reshaping monetary policy. So it seems like she's fired, though she is contesting this. She says the president has no authority to fire her, and she will continue to carry out her duties. It does sound like he has for cause, which is under the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, cause to fire her. He can actually fire her. Whether she thinks he can or not, it seems like he has cause and can fire her. Now, if this is the case and she is completely out, of course, this happened last night. I'm sure it does seem like she's fired. It seems like she's out. I'm sure the next person Trump will appoint will obviously be a Trump acolyte here, whatever you want to call them, someone that is in favor of what Trump is trying to do, someone that he can tap on and vote in his direction. It seems like the inevitable rate cuts are on the horizon. And the more they cut interest rates, of course, the last time they did this, Bitcoin pumped 70%. Free money, or rather, I keep saying free money, but that keeps reminding me of the money printer. Easy money is back on the table, which means more liquidity, which means that assets are going to go absolutely skyrocketing. So now's the time to be buying assets. And of course, we as Bitcoiners believe that the best asset to buy is Bitcoin. Now, very interesting other development or other kind of wrinkle in this conversation is this idea of the Fed being independent. Now it seems like for better or worse, and I do have another Supreme Court case that does kind of lead credence to the idea that Trump is in control now, whether you like him or not, and the whole, as Nico would say, administrative state is being neutered in real time. There is this interesting quote that I saw last night that presidents have known for a long time that the Fed isn't actually independent, and that's the myth. And here's Geiger Capital has a screenshot of a conversation with Richard Nixon. Remember when Nixon took us off the gold standard? 1971. WTF happened in 1971. This is, I wouldn't say where all our problems started, but this is when we completely got detached from the world. Anyways, President Nixon to Fed Chair Arthur Barnes. He goes, Bill Martin there. He was always 6 months too late doing anything. Again, sounds very familiar to what Trump is saying about Jay Powell today. Yes, Mr. President, I don't like to be late, talking about Federal Reserve Chairman Bill Martin. And he goes, the Fed and the money supply are more important than anything the Bureau of the Budget does. Arthur, I want you to come over and see me privately anytime. Thank you, Mr. President. And then Nixon goes, I know there's the myth of the autonomous Fed. And when you go up for confirmation, some senator may ask you about your friendship with the president. Appearances are going to be important. So you can call Earl Lickman to get messages to me, and he'll call you. Again, the myth of an autonomous Fed, an independent Fed, is not the case. We know that they are totally intertwined. And now it is becoming even more clear that the U.S., or rather the Trump administration, wants to essentially wholly gain control of the Fed, which you could argue is a bad thing. You know, there's a new trend of like collectivism that's being thrown around currently. But the argument of whether Trump is even able to do this is very interesting. When I also saw this earlier in the day yesterday, you guys know I'm a fan of Tom Luongo. I really enjoy his work. I do like his contrarian takes, and a lot of the things he says does sound logical. And he tweeted this yesterday. And again, this was before we got the news of Trump firing a Fed governor. And he goes, and so it begins. And he's quote tweeting this tweet here. Again, I'm not the most political. I don't know how all of politics works, but if this is the case, and you guys can fact check me, I do believe this is the case. We have Paul White, Gold Eagle, doing a tweet here, and he goes, breaking. SCOTUS hands Trump total power. Executive purge begins now. The Supreme Court just obliterated the deep state's final line of defense, granting President Trump full authority to fire the heads of, quote, independent federal agencies. No more delays, no more red tape, no more protection for unelected traitors. The court declared Trump is the executive branch, period. This is not a, quote, legal clarification. This is an all-out constitutional reset. Trump is no longer fighting with one hand tied. So this happened earlier in the day. And then later in the day, we have Trump firing the Fed governor. Interesting stuff going on here, just to say the least. Now, I know Jay Powell is essentially out next year, and I doubt that Trump has a for-cause, clause here to fire Jay Powell, because they're just really fighting over the interest rate. So as you remember earlier, you can fire him for cause, but you can't fire him over policy disputes. It seems like what Jay Powell is doing with Trump is policy disputes here, but they were able to fire, what's this girl's name? Lisa Cook here. And so now it does look like Trump, or rather people in favor at the Fed to cut interest rates, are going to be in positions of power at the Fed under Jay Powell, and he's out in, early 2026. So all that is to say, it seems like Fed cuts, interest rate cuts are imminent. When they cut the rates, guys, liquidity goes into overdrive. Your assets are going to go up. You want to be stacking Bitcoin. It looks, guys, I hate to say it, but it looks like the Fed might have just saved the Bitcoin bull run. Maybe Trump saved the bull run here. Maybe we are getting 150K early in Trump's presidency. Who knows? A boy can hope. A boy can wish. So that's the, the short and the thick of what's going on at the Fed. Looks like someone got fired. The speculation, or rather, the very easy kind of takeaway from this is we are going to get a new Fed governor, board member that is in favor of cutting interest rates. Jay Powell is going to be out early 2026. Putting all that together, it looks like we're probably going to get Fed rate cuts in September. And further, if they continue down this loose monetary policy, or rather easing of the quantitative tightening and increasing the liquidity here, maybe we don't see a 2026 bear market, guys. I don't know. Yeah, Corolla was right. Same thing last bull run. A boy can hope. 400K till end of year still in play. Yeah, look, let's be conservative here. Let's just get to like 200, maybe 300, and then we can talk about 444 and everything. So interesting stuff happening, guys. Very interesting stuff. And like I said before this bit, I'm not here cheerleading the Fed. As you know, I want to end the Fed. I don't want to replace a cancerous tumor with another cancerous tumor. I don't believe that any group of people should have control over the money. This is why I'm a Bitcoiner. But again, the reason I've kind of gotten into macro and seeing what's going on with the Fed is because we are becoming more intertwined. And what they do there does affect our market, our industry here, because we're a pimple on the, the butt of traditional capital markets. And so if those markets sneeze, we're going to puke. If those markets start to get bullish and start pumping, Bitcoin is also going to pump. I would argue Bitcoin would pump harder. So as much as we try to not care about what, 12 people think about the money supply, what they do does impact every other market. And of course, our industry, our markets here. So it is a very interesting stuff coming out of the Fed. I don't know, man. Yeah, I was promoted one. I was also promised $1 million Bitcoin. Anyways, on that note, I'm gonna wrap up today's show with some some might argue hopium, some might argue copium, but I don't know, man. The more I'm in disbelief of what's going on right now, the more I'm starting to feel like we're going to nuke. It makes me feel like the bull run hasn't even started. All right, guys, let's get into it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
Hey guys, thank you. I can't pull it up. I missed it, but thank you to Ben Rizzo, Overton Window Drink, $5 super chat. Appreciate it. And yeah, Chef Tommy, I do have a feeling, and it's starting to feel good. Even though I've been feeling bad, that's why I think it's starting to feel good. And it's really based off of this idea from this tweet here. And I know you guys were yelling at me yesterday for reading tweets, but hey, there's a lot of smarter people than I am here. You remember, guys, I have a 42 IQ. I can barely leave my house without hurting myself here. So I gotta lean on other people's shoulders. I stand on the shoulders of giants. And this guy, again, guys, I don't know where he came from, to be honest. He really came on my radar a couple of months ago. But he's been dropping some fire tweets here. This guy, Sightbringer, aka the _profit _. I really like his insights right now. And when I read this tweet, it really made me think like this is probably what's going on. And again, some context here is this idea of we've all been kind of wondering, and I'm not going to pull up the charts here, but like my boy Mitchell Hoddle has been saying, ever since the ETFs were launched, the fundamental structure of the Bitcoin price has changed. We are in a new era, that we are in a new paradigm. Like, again, not this time is different per se, because we will always eat those words here as Bitcoin. But hey, you know, you don't step into the river twice, as the metaphor, or I don't know, analogy goes. You are never stepping into the same river twice. I believe that was Sun Tzu. Here I am pulling out philosophy on you guys. But with all that in mind, that the ETFs have fundamentally changed what we are doing here, for better or for worse, depending on what side you take. Things are feeling a little different. And even though we're having an extremely bullish news cycle around Bitcoin, it seems like every single day something that we would hope would happen years ago are happening, and the price isn't moving much. This tweet really kind of stuck in my brain for the last couple of days. And well, rather the last couple of hours. I've been thinking about this tweet on repeat. I've literally been repeating it to friends, like in 6 different conversations. Anyway, Sightbringer goes, a lot of people are whining that Bitcoin hasn't gone anywhere in 9 months. ETFs buying billions, sovereigns accumulating, and yet prices barely move. They see stagnation. What they're missing is execution. Price hasn't run vertical because ETFs, corporates, and sovereigns are absorbing every bid, while whales weaponizing that bid to flush leverage and reload lower. That's not weakness, that's control. Retail wants instant plus 50% candles. That's me. Smart money knows if the bid is infinite, you farm weak hands first. That $6 billion flush wasn't random. It was surgical downside to reload. 9 months of, quote, flat under max demand is compression. Price refusing to break down despite constant selling is the tell. Reflexive coils don't look bullish until they ignite, then they go exponential. This isn't stagnation, it's a full transfer of ownership from speculative holders to ETFs, sovereigns, and corporates. That process looks flat until the disbelief phase ends. Then it's 112K or 110K to 250K while the whiners get left behind. Flat price while the strongest hands on earth accumulate is not bearish, it's ignition. The disbelief you feel right now is the signal. And that's what really was a tell for me, because you guys have seen me on the show the last couple of weeks. As you know, I'm super bullish. But in the last week or so, you know, I can feel the doubt, the disbelief kind of creeping in. I've been saying, you know, I think this is a bear trap, because I feel it in myself of like, it feels like we're going to drop. Like, it feels like I'm still waiting for this double top to happen. And every little, you know, drop on the price chart feels like the roller coaster where my stomach starts lifting, and I absolutely hate that feeling. I don't like that falling feeling in my stomach, and I'm feeling this psychologically. So that last point, the disbelief you feel right now is the signal. And if we're honest with ourselves, or you're honest with yourself, because I've been very honest with myself, I'm feeling that right now. The more I think it's going to pump, the more I'm worried that it's going to dump. And that disbelief is, I think, the big signal here. If you've been in the space for a long time, you really have, and not that we're traders here, but if you've been in Bitcoin and you've done cycles, you've been in the Bitcoin cycle for a while, you do kind of have to counter trade your feelings and emotions. Not that you're trading, but like when it's the scariest to buy Bitcoin, that's probably when you should be buying. When you are euphoric buying Bitcoin, that's probably when you should step off the gas a little bit. You shouldn't be doing that HELOC and buying that, you know, supercar, etc. Like, your emotions are tells of what's going on in the market. And right now I am feeling disbelief. Like, I am feeling like, man, this could almost drop at any second here. But I think this is on the point, like on the nose. Like, I think this is the signal here. As we've been seeing, there's more and more evidence that sovereigns are buying, nation states are buying, the corporations are scooping this up. ETFs own millions plus Bitcoin. And these people, as Larry Fink said himself in the clip earlier in the video, they are thinking in 20 to 30 year timelines. So if you're thinking of buying Bitcoin for a year or 6 months or 5 years, if you're not thinking in 10-year timeframes right now, you're really playing a losing strategy. Hence why everyone in the chat is always like, I'm not selling this. I'm holding this for the long term. And so I think there's a lot to this. We are seeing this fundamental shift right now. And I think the flush we saw from 116 to 112 is one of these dying moments here of the old guard trying to kind of manipulate the market for, last few final times here so that they can stack up, knowing that there is this unlimited sovereign bid from sovereign wealth funds, nation states, corporations. They're here and they want your Bitcoin. And so the game, I think, is it is shifting as we speak. Now, with that all being said, I did tell you I was going to end this with some hopium here. Okay. So another great Twitter account, this guy Tech Dev, I brought him up on the show for a minute now. He's got this chart. Again, I don't know what this chart is holding because he kind of, has his own metrics here, but he says the business cycle. So if you're wondering where we are in the cycle, it seems like this bull run hasn't even started. He says, all I see is this cycle is so different. F this cycle, or cycle's almost over. What's actually different, that the green has been longer. This, build up has been longer, and thus the ramp has been longer. And that's all. Red hasn't even started, AKA up price movement hasn't even started. Doesn't seem like most will be here when it does. And here for everyone, here's the business cycle. As you can see, when it is green, I believe this is green, is kind of like the bear market, not necessarily just bear market, but like accumulation, the buildup. And then we're in the red market. Red candles here is where it starts getting frothy and we start going towards the parabolic bull run. You can see the green market, the buildup was generally short. These three do look very similar in length. And then the bull run, which basically all look pretty similar in length. And what we're seeing, again, I'm pretty sure the ETFs are like, right around here or so, like that. We are in an elongated bear market-ish, accumulation market structure here. And so, again, I don't know if this is necessarily what you should be trading against, but it does kind of give me the feeling that, yeah, this all is kind of working together. All these data points are showing me, yes, I am feeling disbelief, but I do, and I know you guys called us chart boys earlier. I'm not really a chart boy. I do look at charts per se, just to kind of get my bearings of where we are in the market right now. I don't trade against the charts because I just buy and hold. That's all I do. But it is good to kind of use these different data points to understand where we are in the cycle, so you can kind of temper your expectations here. And if this is correct, this business cycle, which we've kind of been talking, there's a lot of new kind of memes here. It's the M2 money liquidity supply, or rather global liquidity supply, and then the business cycle. And this business cycle meme here, I'm going to call it a meme. Let's just hope it plays out, is all I'm saying. I would love to see this play out, okay? We've been in a long accumulation scenario here, and then the bull run is going to go. And one last, hopium chart here. Bitcoin crab crawl path. He goes, let's analyze this crab market so far, defined by end of 2022 to now. It's the longest one in Bitcoin's 16-year history. Again, different data points kind of showing us the same thing. We have been in the longest bear market or crab market in history, in Bitcoin's history, which does show maybe things are fundamentally changing again. If we have an elongated bear market accumulation to kind of get back up, it's probably going to mean an elongated bull market, which could be we're going to be pumping into 2026. And it turns out to be an exponential growth curve. Again, he's using kind of power laws here. I don't know if I necessarily believe the power laws here, but if it continues on its current path, it should hit 200K per coin. He goes as late as May 23rd, 2026. But during this crab crawl, it has no problem hitting or hugging the +2 sigma line. I don't know what that means per se, which could easily mean 200K as early as November 23rd this year. What's that? 2 months from now. 200K 2 months? Sounds great to me. And he goes, none of this accounts for a steeper, super exponential euphoric phase leading to the top, which would be more typical of past cycles. In either case, we go higher, and 200K or more looks very doable this year, guys. So take that with a grain of salt. I like it. I told you I'd give you some hopium here. I'm told, like, as someone was joking yesterday, we know Opti is trolling. What am I trolling about? Simply Bitcoin is your daily dose of copium and hopium wrapped up in one. So I took that in mind, guys. I think that was Toby in the chat yesterday. So I figured I'd end today's show with a little bit of copium and hopium. I'm totally copying here, and I'm totally feeding myself hopium here, guys. Okay, all right. So there is only green from now on. That's the takeaway. That is the takeaway. Let me see. Isn't that the same as buying home? Yeah, pretty much. Well, minus the hold for profit. Yeah, 100%. Yes, this is the strategy. Buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, chill, live your life, come back, ? Profit. Let's go. Let's go. All right, guys. This is the end of the show, and I was reminded that we have missed the Bitcoin wishing well. So get out your Lightning wallets right now. Again, our boys at Bitcoin Well going to give out some free sats, and I have a secondary giveaway for you guys here. So first of all, let me pull this up. Of course, every time you sign up, or rather new signups to Bitcoin Well, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well, and you get a chance to win 1 million sats. If you buy Bitcoin, you get more points to win sets. If you refer your friends, you get more points to win sets. And once you have those points here, you go into your rewards and you hit the wishing well. So first one to scan this gets free sets. So here we go. Whoever wins this will get 600 sats. All right, I will leave this here for a second. Guys, I wouldn't sign off yet. I wouldn't leave the show yet, because I do have Opti doesn't believe in power laws. What's next? Is he going to tell us the plan? Dude, I believe in power laws. I just don't know if I believe in the Bitcoin power law. Okay. Jeez. Okay. Let's see. All right. Don't leave yet, guys. I do have a special. This is going to be the big kahuna. So if you're in here in the Bitcoin wishing well and you hit the unclaimed sets, if you guys haven't been scanning the Bitcoin wishing well, now is the time to scan the unclaimed sats, and it should go up. It did it earlier. It took a moment. There you go. First one, just to scan this, get to 1,188 of unclaimed sats. You guys aren't claiming these sats, guys. You guys aren't pulling out your Bitcoin. You guys yell at me for the free sats here, and you guys aren't even scanning them. What is going on? You guys are crazy. This is crazy talk. Crazy talk out here. Okay, guys, there you go. Hopefully someone took those sats and they aren't there tomorrow. All right, guys. I'll be back tomorrow. And for everyone yelling at me, guys, look, the official start time of the show is 12:30. Okay. I know we put the YouTube up at 12:15. There's a method to the madness. Come at 12:30. I know today we were a little late. The blame Luke. I'm gonna throw him into the bus. We were setting up his gear, but the official start time is 12:30. Okay. So in your mind, I know it says on YouTube 12:15. I know it says 12:20 on Rumble, but that's so you guys can hang out in the chat and too hard hodl out there. I have some things in the works. Just, you got to be patient with me. I'm going to make it a little more fun for you guys to hang out in the studio, or rather the chat before the show. But the official start time here, the unofficial official start time is 12:30, guys. We might be a minute or two late. Today we were late. I'll give you that. Okay. I was late. We were late today. Luke had to do some stuff. We try to make sure the show's good for you guys. Anyways, enough apologizing. I'm not apologizing. I'm just telling you. Okay. 12:30 is when we start. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Smash the like button, comment on the show, and of course, hit the subscriber button. I will see you tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, Monday through Friday. And of course, watch all the other content. We have the best content dropping. Usually it's around 6-ish, 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight, where we drop Rustin, Dante, Sophie, and Oceans. We love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow on another episode of Simply Bitcoin. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.